Tough day for India, and it is their test match to make the play if they are to salvage the series. But well done, South Africa, who piled on the runs, 489 of them, after resuming the day at 247 for 6. That's a serious effort from Senuran Muthusamy, Marco Jansen, even Vernon played his part. So we look back at this day. What are the possibilities of this test match now, with 3 days remaining? On Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday. We'll hear from Vernon Philander in a moment. First up, Saba, Karim. Just the kind of day that you have to tip your hat off to the opposition. Well done, South Africa.
Yes, Raunak, and I think it's a hard and a tough day for India, never-ending day for India. To be on the field close to 2 days, it takes a lot out of you. It is draining day for India. But good that the 6.1 over that India had to bat, they are without loss at this stage. That will give them some kind of relief. Now it is up to the Indian batters to really force the pace, because it is up to them to eke out a result here that maybe can go in India's favour. It is going to be a very tough ask. At this stage, I think South Africa are on solid footing.
Yeah, let's get Vernon Philander's initial comments and we'll go deeper into those points as well. They'll be sitting pretty satisfied after that, almost, dare I say, Vernon, thinking that this test match is hard to lose from this position?
Absolutely. I don't think South Africa could have scripted any better. I think they needed to start well with a bat. They wanted to get runs on the board. But more importantly, they've batted so much time out of the test match. I think another concerning factor for me in India's quest to make, obviously, a game of it, or to try and get a victory behind the name, is the amount of time we are losing towards the back end of the day. I think if you're going to add, all those overs up, we've got 270 overs left in the match. For them to match South Africa's score is probably going to take them close to 120, 140 overs. And I'm just a little bit concerned with the amount of time that we're losing every single evening here.
Yeah, it's a good point to make. For what it's worth, right now, we're at 157.2 overs in 2 days. So getting less than 80 overs per day in reality. So you break that down. Even if you get 80 overs a day, you're suddenly looking at 240 overs. We have to try and get till, if not beyond, a big first innings score, still leave yourself time to get 10 more South African wickets, which may or may not be easy depending on how this pitch plays. What are the possibilities of this test?
Well, there are. Let's try and work out some kind of a scenario, and I'm looking from India's point of view. What are they thinking? What is the talk going on in the dressing room? Apart from, let's focus on what is to be done and session and all that is fine. But what are the scenarios which we can chalk out for India from where they can think of winning? First is to get to a score of maybe 600, depends how India bats. So if you have a lead of 100, 110, I'm just giving a different kind of a flavor to the scenario altogether, Raunak. So that's one way of achieving a result here for India. But for that to happen, India has to bat close to 2 days. And as you rightly said, with say about 80 plus 80, 150, 160 overs they will get. So that means that you have to maintain a healthy strike rate to achieve that. Otherwise, it seems very difficult. The other thing is that get close to South Africa's first innings score, maybe 30, 40 runs short. Try and bowl out South Africa as soon as possible, and try and get those runs in the fourth innings.
Yeah, I guess the questions there are, firstly, how often can this or does this happen? And I can tell you that only 3 times out of 129 test matches have India won after conceding more than 450 in the first innings. And those 3 instances, just bottom of screen for you. It's happened in the last 25 years, but it is not something that happens often. And the other way of, I guess, the other question would be is, can this be a 2 innings shootout at the end where things will happen quickly? Or if India do not get a pressing first innings advantage, South Africa will be comfortable to, if not win this test, then certainly bat 4 sessions if need be to draw a test and therefore win the series. You see this pitch supporting that kind of play?
Well, I feel that South Africa is in such a strong position right now. They would love to enforce a win here. On the other hand, if the wicket gets to turn on the 4th and the 5th day, then there is a possibility of having a shootout in the 4th innings. But I think for that to happen, it all depends on the surface, Raunak. At this stage, the way the wicket has behaved, if it goes on to play in a similar manner tomorrow, I don't see that working out well for India. So I think strong possibility for India. At this stage, I think the best possibility for India is to get to as close as possible to South Africa's massive first innings score.
Now let's take all those thoughts like Saba would be having from the Indian camp, transfer it from the South African perspective. It's a nice place to be in, I imagine, Vernon, where how much your opposition needs to make the pace of play of this game. In which case, if India are going to try and play at 4-5 and over, if they need a Jaiswal or a Rishabh Pant to play that sort of attacking innings, therein lies perhaps South Africa to just play the waiting game and perhaps have a say.
Absolutely, I think they've afforded themselves the luxury of betting themselves into a real dominant position, and of course, I think by having that, the opposition have to make all the play, and I think also with that there will be an element of risk being taken, and I think South Africa will grab that opportunity because you feel the surface almost cries out for guys to get in and bat at about three, just over 3 to the over. I think the only reason South Africa got to their 3 and a bit to the over was that injection of Marco Jansen, with that innings where he really, basically took the spinners to the cleaners. But I don't foresee this being that kind of surface. Yes, I think with the new ball there might be scoring opportunity, but as the ball gets older and softer, I think we're going to see a similar trend, where it's going to be really tough to score in the middle phase. But again, India, they have the luxury of players that can play that kind of game. They can look to up the ante, but I just think there will be a lot of risk being taken. And I think I have to also second that the only way back for India would be to go past South Africa's score. I don't think allowing South Africa to come and bat another 2 sessions, you're gonna chase the runs in the 4th innings. But I feel the only way for India is to post a massive score in the first innings here and hopefully go like 100 ahead. And allow yourself, maybe 2 sessions on the last day where the ball will start turning.
Yeah, that is the trend usually when India have won in those 3 games. Even if your opposition gets 400, you get 600. But this is now 489, and with lots of time, as Vernon Philander says. If they are to have 2 or 3 batters play a high tempo innings, they can learn from Marco Jansen today, because that innings played no small part in getting this score up. Vernon, take us through the most impressive aspect of Marco Jansen, the batter today, and what is his highest test and first class score?
Yeah, I think I love the approach that he's taken today. I think very often we've seen Marco Jansen trying to be a little bit defensive. I don't think that game suits his style of play. I think he really becomes effective when he's looking to go after the spinners. I mean, he's got those long levers anywhere near his half of the pitch. I think he has the ability to clear the fence quite easily, and I'm so pleased to see that he's actually backed his A game today. I think he looks a completely different batter, and for the seamers as well. I think if you're going to touch on the full side, he has a beautiful swing of the blade. Where as a bowler, you almost feel you want to stay away from that area. But again, that's the Marco Jansen that I like to see, and we need to see a lot more of that Marco Jansen, especially at Test match level. But a brilliant innings. I think he's also identified the time. We're coming in with Muthusamy, understanding that Muthusamy was going to be the anchor. He's going to rotate strike. And he really rallies on the scoring opportunities, which is something that I'm really, really impressed with, the way he's gone about his game.
Yeah, he took down Kuldeep Yadav in the middle session of play on day 2 today, and even Jadeja. And until then, it's fair to say, Saba, we hadn't seen evidence of batters playing big shots, high-risk shots, at getting 6-7 on over and being successful. So Jansen has shown us what's possible against even the spinners that were supposed to be India's strength.
Well, to some extent, Raunak, I think it's something for the Indian batters to learn. On a track like this, if you spend some time with the surface, you can still go on and play your shots, and the Indian batting lineup is capable of doing so. But a word on Marco Jansen, admirable knock, a fearless knock, did not show any restraint whatsoever, and he decided to play those big shots, especially those no-look shots was remarkable to watch. And I think it goes to show that the wicket is still remains very good for batting. I think this onset of early winter has helped the wicket to remain compact the way it has behaved today. Hopefully for India, if it continues to do so, that India can score runs at a healthy pace. But yes, Marco Jansen's inning today was, I think, the biggest turning point in this Test match.
Yeah, no look shot, but I remember his look when he got out. Now that's the problem with you bowling all-rounders, Vernon Philander. You look as good as the top 6. The minute you get into the 89, 90, 92, then you start playing and thinking like batters. And then, perhaps with the lieu of the 100, came Kuldeep Yadav's dismissal of him, which he seemed so disgusted at himself with. How did he get out?
That is the problem, you start backing yourself, you start thinking like a batter. I think You should have just, think like an all-rounder and try and bash it out the ground. And also, in that way, he's the maximum tally of sixes in test matches. But again, I think take nothing away from, the way he's gone about this innings. Yeah, I mean, it was always going to take something special to get him out. You'd have been disgusted, not getting to the three-figure mark because he's had to work so hard. And I mean, he's given himself every opportunity of getting there. But again, fair play to the guy. And again, I think one piece of advice to Marco: don't think like a batter.
It was such a Vernon, isn't it? It was such a funny partnership between Keshav Maharaj and Marco Jansen. It seemed who was trying to farm the strike. At times you felt that it was Keshav Maharaj who was trying to farm the strike instead of Marco Jansen. But all that worked quite well for South Africa, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Keshav Maharaj has the knack of doing that. Every last ball of the over, he steals the strike. He gets he gets a one, and he gets himself on strike. But again, I think it also just goes to show that you can trust the Keshav Maharaj. So it wasn't a matter of Marco Jansen having to farm the strike, and obviously Keshav being knocked over on the other side. And that's really where South Africa's biggest strength lies. That lower order runs. I think for a vast majority of the time, even when I played for South Africa, we pride those lower order partnerships because we know that's the real difference between winning test matches. So again, I think a lot of compliments to Muthusamy in the way that he's entrusted, the other guys around him, and then obviously Marco Jansen for entrusting Keshav Maharaj at the end there.
All right. Well, like I told you, he wasn't thinking like a batter when he was getting Maharaj on strike.
Yeah.
The minute he started thinking like one, boom, gone. All right. Well done, Marco Jansen. Big say with the bat in this innings. But in fairness, the foundation of this innings and the time taken out of this game, which could be so crucial if South Africa are to avoid defeat, if not win this test match. And credit to Senaran Muthusamy, who is now a test centurion for South Africa, back in the side, gets 100, and he's therefore our Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund's bankable player of the day. All right, let's get Saba, Karim and Vernon Philander in on this thoroughly impressive, patient innings. What words would you describe to just how he compiled that 100?
I think the bulwark of his innings was based on solid defense, Raunak, and I think that's so essential when you're playing in these conditions. And to have solid defense, you need to have that self-belief and the fact that you're able to understand the surface. And I thought Muthusamy innings was a strong reflection of the way you're supposed to bat on a track like this. Even yesterday, when the conditions were quite tough with fading light, he was able to use so much of his focus to remain at the crease and yet score runs. Today morning was a revelation. He was able to score runs at a brisk pace. Along with Marco Jansen, he really flourished. So he has his set plans. He knows the scoring areas, and he really backed himself to score runs in those areas. And he was equally capable against spinners as well as against Siraj and Bumrah.
All right, Vernon, just weigh in on what you've seen today. You must be thrilled for a man who you know well, who you've seen. Take us through a little bit of his preparation, mindset. He looked like he was just at home, even though he was just back in the side.
Yeah, I think a sheer masterpiece of old-fashioned test match batting. I think the concentration levels, the determination, the grit, the grind to wear bowlers down. And then, of course, when those scoring opportunities presented himself, he took full advantage of it. But the one thing that really stands out for me is his mindset. I think he's always, zoned in on that very next delivery. But when the scoring opportunity do arise, you almost feel that he always get himself into a wonderful position of, taking full advantage of those scoring opportunities. But again, in order to do so, you need to trust your defense. I think he's got a fantastic defensive mechanism. He allows the ball to come, plays the ball late under his eyes. And that is, a key aspect of his game, especially in the subcontinent, where the ball does seem to move a little bit late. But, I think this is sheer masterclass in the way that he's gone about his innings today.
Excellent from Senaran Muthusamy. I can tell you, speaking at the end of play, gentlemen, Muthusamy says this, really special moment for me in front of a full house. I'm glad I could contribute for the team. Was just to build partnerships and try and extend the innings. That was the game plan. Jansen was special and the other guys chipped in. Special ball striking from Marco Jansen. And the last thing, when asked about the DRS call, when just before he got to 50, he says, I did feel something.
Yeah, one can expect something like this for Muthusamy, the way he went about scoring his runs. So yeah, but such a dedicated effort from him, and good to hear that he rightly complimented Marco Jansen and the other batters who helped him get to this remarkable milestone of his first Test 100.
All right, Senaran Muthusamy is our Bajaj Finserv Mutual Fund's bankable player of the day. Right, excellent from South Africa. Just quick word to cap the overall batting effort. Now, rightly, Muthusamy says everyone else chipped in, but Vernon, what is the overall all-round batting success of this innings tell us about South Africa? Two-test series not easy. 1-0, yes, in the first, but coming into this test match and playing this patient game, patient innings, drawing and grinding India out. What does it tell you about South Africa's batting sort of mindset these days?
I think I made mention in the first test that South Africa is often a team that starts slow, especially in bilateral series. But the fortunate part for them heading into this particular series was their 2 test matches with Pakistan. But once they get used to conditions, I feel South Africa has always been a team that can adapt very well to foreign conditions. And it just goes to show the way they played in this particular test. I think they would have learned a great deal from batting in that first innings in Kolkata, where one could perhaps say a couple of soft dismissals along the way. But I think the Watts word would have been, one of those guys to kick on and get 100 for the team. And obviously in so doing, you allow those lower order partnerships to form. And I think they've taken a great leave out of it. Yes, they know coming into this particular test match or this particular fixture that they wanted a big first inning score. But I think the one pleasing thing is also when Muthusamy is saying that, he enjoyed the partnerships he formed with Karl Verena, with Marco Jansen at the back there, simply because it takes the focus off you, as an individual. And I think you invest more of the energy and your drive and your purpose into the partnership, and thereby, it makes your job so much easier. And so I think, the one word for me always is to take as much pressure off yourself, whilst you're in this high pressure, scenarios. And I think he's just highlighted again that, by forming partnerships, the concentration is not so much on yourself, but it is the energy that you put into that partnership, formed with your colleague on that end.
Yeah. Saba, just on South Africa's success story as a visiting batting team, which is not easy here.
Yes, Raunak, I think there's been great learning from the Eden test match. They realized that in order to get runs on these tracks in India, I think your priority should be occupation of the crease. Once you're able to do so, then there will be many more scoring opportunities. I felt that at Eden Gardens, they showed too much batters were too much in a hurry to score runs quickly, and that is why we saw so many tame dismissals. Here, it was a different batting unit altogether for South Africa. Now, they wanted to stay at the crease, they wanted to consume time, and then they knew very well that they will get enough scoring opportunities. And I think all the entire batting lineup from South Africa, leave aside Marco Jansen, he was in a different vein altogether. But the rest of the batters, they really applied themselves. And I think that's the huge difference or a huge learning for South Africa. So it is a very tight batting side, and I think they learn from each other. And they offer so much of support to each other also.
Brilliant. Well, India now need to match the World Test champions. They're 480 runs behind, and they have to make the play. We've said that a few times. Let's talk session by session now. Morning session, day 3, KL Rahul and Jaiswal. How do you expect them to approach things with this ball still relatively new?
There may be some help for the pace bowlers tomorrow morning. As I said, the onset of winter in Guwahati, it may assist the pace bowlers. So I think both these batters need to be watchful. I could figure out that Marco Jansen especially will try and bowl into Yashasvi Jaiswal. He needs to be careful. But I think it is also an individual's game plan. We keep saying all the time you need to bat session-wise. But I think it is an individual batter's approach. Does he want to play session-wise? Does he want to bat in different blocks of runs, something like that, maybe 10 runs down the order, and then you're over with it. So I think you need to leave it to the individual batter as to how he wants to get about getting runs on this kind of a track.
Is Yashasvi Jaiswal a bigger player for India than even otherwise now looking at the state of the game? If India lose him tomorrow, probably assume Sai Sudarshan will bat 3. You know how KL and Sai Sudarshan like to play the slightly more grafting sort of innings. But Jaiswal, if he gets going, could keep India perhaps in the game. Is he a bigger player tomorrow than perhaps usually?
Oh yes, in a big way. Raunak, because I think the way Yashasvi Jaiswal has batted in his entire Test career, if he's able to get off to that kind of form in the initial overs, he can apply pressure on the South African bowling lineup, and very quickly they'll have to resort to the spinners. So I think both Jaiswal and Rishabh Pant will play a big role. The other batters can play around these two, left-handers. Otherwise, if you Sai Sudarshan doesn't have too much experience, Dhruv Jurel will come in. So there are these young batters in the lineup. So it is up to the experienced Indian batting lineup to deliver tomorrow. And I think a lot depends on Yashasvi Jaiswal and this opening partnership with KL Rahul also.
Yeah, these are the two key left-handers you'd think, Jaiswal and Pant, with just how they play their Test cricket. On the other hand, India have lots of left-handers, Vernon. Simon Harmer was player of the match in Kolkata. This was one thing we discussed. If India have so many left-handers, will we see Simon Harmer have a big say tomorrow, or is it going to be a day you sense Temba Bavuma relies more on his pacers?
I think initially with that new ball in the morning, he would want to fire up Björn Mulder as well as Marco Jansen. I think I've always said it, and especially the way that these surfaces have behaved. I think there's a wonderful opportunity with that new ball. I think from an Indian perspective, you perhaps would say to yourself, we need to be a little bit more watchful. We need to have a little bit more respect against a new ball. Because we all saw that once you get in on these surfaces, there is runs to be collected. I don't think we've seen the surface deteriorated. So I think it's a wonderful sign for both teams. And I think as much as the surface is a good one, it's going to test players in a different, in a different avenue. I think one, patience, but also two, now that India know they need to make the play, how do you go about building your innings? I think Jay as well, he can play his normal game because it's overly attacking, from the get-go. So, but it's about affording yourself an opportunity to get in on those surfaces. I think once you're in, these guys have just shown Muthusamy, Jansen toward the back there, that once you're in on those surfaces, you can become effective and you can take the game to the opposition. So it's about allowing yourself the opportunity, and that window up front, I think, is to get in on the surface.
All right, Vernon, you know what's next. Where's this game going to be after the first session tomorrow?
Look, I think India's going to start well, but I do feel South Africa will pick up a couple of wickets because of the mindset that India needs to obviously take to their batting innings. So I feel they're going to be 3 down at lunch. They might be 90 for 3 at lunch.
Said a couple of wickets and threw in one more, maybe just at the stroke of lunch. Just that old Protea heart still bleeding green. Yes,
yeah.
Saba.
I think for India to remain alive, I think they cannot afford to lose more than 2 wickets. 2 for maybe 75, 80. At least they'll have some kind of a platform. And India also bats deep. And quite like what South African lower order batters have at times bailed South Africa out, even Indian lower order batters have done that on numerous occasions, Raunak. So I think, but once you need to have that kind of a kickstart that can be provided by the openers. So I think India, ideally one down at tea, but India can still manage even if they lose a couple of wickets in the morning.
Yeah, it's not as straightforward a question as it used to be, but I'll ask it. Who's at number 3 for this Test match?
Sai Sudarshan.
Okay,
yeah, you have to push him in. I mean, come on, you have to back him, Raunak.
Just
why have we picked him otherwise?
Surprise
He's a
us
young player.
In fact, both these teams are surprising us with their number 3s. We had Mulder and Tristan Stubbs and Washington Sundar, and now who knows what happens. But anyway, take a point well. And maybe I should ask you number 4, because no Shubman Gill. Is Jurel the 4? Is Washi the 4?
I hope Dhruv Jurel at number 4.
Okay.
Washi will go down the order.
All right, we leave it there. Thank you, Vernon Philander, and thank you, Saba Karim. We leave it there, and we look forward to the thoughts of these fine gents tomorrow at the end of the first session, which is a crucial session for India to try and get closer and closer, session by session, to this mammoth first inning score by South Africa. Join us for analysis at tea time on day 3, the moving day of the Test match, on Bajaj Finserv Mutual Funds presents ESPNcricinfo Matchday.